Hello everyone, anyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Tiffany. This is my first video. I'm excited to finally be recording something, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'm going to be going over the case of Anita Knutson. It is an older case. It happened in 2007, but recently came back into the news or the media because there was an update. There was finally an arrest made, and I'm going to be sharing information with you that I have found out, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Anita was born in September of 1988, originally from California, and they moved to Minot when Anita was around 13 years old. She was described as being very loving and carefree, always rooting for the underdog and standing up for what she believed in. Her father, Gordon, even tells of a story when she was in high school. She stood up for a girl who was sent home for not following the dress code policy, and Anita believed that she had followed the policy. So she took it upon herself to go home and scour the dress code policy handbook, and she couldn't find anything where the girl wasn't, sticking to the rules. So when Anita came to school the next day, she had the principal, look over the policy with her. Like, I don't think that she did anything wrong, and I think you actually owe her an apology. And the principal, kind of took it with a grain of salt and sent Anita back to class, but Anita would not let it go. She kept popping in, every now and then, like, hey, have you apologized to her yet? And one day the principal finally said, yes, I've apologized. And I'm sure that made the girl feel good. Anytime that you're stood up for, it makes you feel good. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. So I thought that was amazing. Anita didn't have to do that, and I'm sure the girl was very appreciative. Anita was also described as having like a very magnetic energy. Everybody that met her loved her and couldn't stay away, always wanted to be around her and spend time with her. And so because of that, Anita had a large group of friends, and one of these friends was Tyler Schmaltz, who asked Anita to go to junior prom, and she accepted. Even though she wasn't interested in him romantically, she still went, and they had a great time. There's pictures on the internet, and they looked very adorable. And they remained friends until Anita's death. And Anita also had a friend named Nicole Rice, another, friend who couldn't stay away. Some people described her as one of Anita's best friends. Nicole wouldn't describe them as being best friends if you ask today. She said that they didn't get close until they were in college, when they both went to Minot University. I'm not sure what Nicole attended university for, what her major or her minor was, but I know Anita went for education, and I believe that it takes a special person to want to be a teacher or to be a teacher. I have the, best respects for all teachers. Where would we be without them? And while Anita and Nicole were at Minot University, they at first lived in the dorms. They both had different roommates, but I don't think it was working out the best for either of them, and they came up with an agreement to move off campus. And I know it can save you money to live off campus, and they decided to become roommates in an apartment complex. And Tyler even decided that he wanted to come and join them at the apartment complex also. That is, going back to some of Anita's magnetic energy. Tyler will tell you that all of his friends moved away after high school, and he just wanted to be close to Anita. And so they all kind of lived in the same area, and Tyler and Anita would talk and hang out, and they all remained friends until June of 2007, when Anita's father would unfortunately find Anita stabbed to death in her apartment. Anita and her mother, Sharon, spoke daily on the phone. Anita's mom will tell you that they talked on Friday, and Anita had called in that day. There's not really much information as to why she called in. Maybe she just felt like she needed a little time off. Working 2 jobs and going to school full time would exhaust anybody. Sharon said she had tried to reach Anita on Saturday and Sunday and couldn't get a hold of her, and that wasn't really like Anita not to call her back or just not answer, when her mom called the first time or maybe even the second time. So Sharon felt like something wasn't right and asked her husband, Gordon, to go over there on Monday and see if Anita was okay, if she needed, any assistance, maybe she wasn't feeling too good. And when Gordon got to the apartment complex, he seen Anita's car. And, I'm sure that made him feel some kind of comfort, like, okay, she's here, no big deal. And he goes up and knocks on the door and there's no answer. And so he tried to open the door and it was locked. So he went over to the manager's office. You know how some complexes have like on-site management. This was one of those. So Gordon went over and was asking the woman if she could let him in Anita's apartment. He felt like, something wasn't right. She wasn't answering her phone or the door, and her car was there. So the manager let him know that it was against the law to let him in, but he let her know, if something's wrong, then, it could be more terrible if you don't let me in. And so the manager sent her boyfriend, who was the maintenance man. His name is Marty. And she sent him over with Gordon to Anita's apartment. And when they got to Anita's apartment, Marty recognized that this was the apartment that he was just at earlier that day. He seen a cut screen on the window, and it said in some reports that he removed the screen and took it to like the maintenance shop at the apartment complex to fix it. But in one like interview, I seen that it said that he picked the screen up out of the yard and brought it to Gordon, and that they walked to Anita's bedroom window together. But so I'm not really sure if he picked it up out of the yard or if he took it off the window. I think the last case I seen on it, they said that he, just took it off the window and went to go fix it in the maintenance shop. But when they got to the window, when Gordon and Marty got to Anita's bedroom window, the window was open. It was June, so it was hot, and so she just had the window up with the screen, and Gordon could see Anita in her bed, and he is quoted as saying that he reached in and touched her head, and that he knew immediately that something was wrong, and he told Marty to get the door open now. So when they opened the door and they went in, Gordon said that it didn't look like anything was disrupted. It didn't look like anything had happened. And when they went into Anita's bedroom, her purse is laying, sitting right next to her bed, and he could see like some money in there, and her bed was like covered in blood, and she was just laying on the bed, kind of face down with a robe on. It says that she was covered up with a house coat, but in some reports it says that she was wearing the house coat. So just, a robe. Some people call it a house coat, but I took that as being like a robe that you would wear when you're just lounging around. And like I said, the bed was covered in blood, and he said he touched Anita again and she was cold, and he knew immediately that she was deceased. Gordon called the police and, then called Sharon and let Sharon know the unfortunate news. And when Anita was a small child, they had adopted 2 more children, Daniel and Anna. And so Anita had 2 younger siblings, and so Sharon called them and let them know they were together, and it just says that they were on their way home. So maybe Anna went and picked Daniel up or something, but he was in the passenger seat, and Anna said that she had never seen him cry before, or like break down the way that he did when he received the phone call about his older sister. And they kind of, rushed back home, but it's stated as saying that Daniel was never the same after, that he kind of withdrew himself, that he took it really hard, not harder than the rest, but that he just couldn't really come to terms with, losing his sister the way that he did. When the cops get there, they like rope everything off with, like the police tape and stuff, and are going in to like look for any evidence. Some reports say that the knife was in the sink, because she was stabbed to death. She was stabbed twice. once in her right breast and the other one like right in the middle, and it kind of and it nicked her heart, and that was, you know, what killed her ultimately. And other reports, like the newer reports, say that the knife was found at the bottom of the bed, like right by the window. So the bed was pushed up against the wall, and at the foot of the bed was the window that was open, and that it was laying there, and it was like one of those folding silver pocket knives, and it was laying on the bed, and it had Anita's blood on it, and so did the screen though. So at first you would think that maybe somebody cut their way in to the apartment, you know, and then encountered Anita. Maybe she was like sleeping, and but if there's blood on the screen, then it leads, you know, you to believe that somebody cut the screen on their way out. So they had already been in the apartment. So it had to have been somebody she trusted, or somebody with a key, because the door was locked. So she either locked it after letting somebody in, or somebody had let themselves in. So the police, you know, start immediately looking for suspects. But they said how Anita's body was found was she was kind of like on the edge of the bed, and she had one leg up under her, and the other leg like straight out, like maybe she had been like leaned back, maybe relaxing, because it was later, you know, found out from going through her phone that she was up all Sunday night. She was having a conversation with somebody named Mike, and her phone was, he was recording her contacts as Money Mike, and he was at a party all night that night, and they were kind of like texting back and forth, and that he had messaged her at like 4:43 in the morning, and she replied, and then when he sent his response to that reply, it went unread, and that was like 6 minutes later that he replied, and it went unread. So she maybe fell asleep or just didn't look at it. And so they found her, like I said, on her bed, face down, with one leg under her, like she was, you know, the attack happened quick, right? The second one got her right in her heart, and so she kind of just maybe fell over her lap and then died like that. So I wouldn't think, right, that somebody was able to get all the way in without her maybe seeing them, because the window was so close to her bed that her dad was able to reach in and touch her. So I would think either she was like so exhausted that she just didn't hear somebody coming in, or like I said, it was somebody that she trusted, because when you stab somebody, that's like a close encounter, you know. It's not, you can't stab somebody from like far away. So somebody was like close enough to her, so it, you know, it just would make me think that it was probably somebody that she knew, which is really sad, but scary, right? Like I said, again, it was like the screen was cut on the way out, not the way in, because of the blood on the screen, and they just threw the knife right there on the bed, right by the window, and it was kind of found under the covers. So they started looking for suspects, and of course they had Mike as a suspect, because that was like the last person that had spoke to her, and he came in for an interview, and they did take his DNA, but his alibi, you know, checked out. He was at a party all night, Sunday night into Monday morning, so it couldn't have been Mike. And sadly, you know, right after, not right after, but pretty soon after they found Anita, Mike passed from complications due to his asthma. And so that is really sad. You know, condolences to his family as well. And so they started looking for other suspects, and they looked at Marty, the maintenance man, because some people are like, well, if he found the screen in the yard, you know, that would make sense. But I think they're saying that he took the screen off the window to go back and fix it. And that either way, he knew if he found it in the yard that it was Anita's window, because it would have been missing the screen, and he went to the window with Gordon. Or when he took the screen off, that how could he have not seen Anita laying there like that if her dad seen her and reached in and touched her? So, you know, for a while, Marty was looking like a pretty good suspect. He was the manager, the complex manager's girlfriend, and then the whole screen situation. Some people just didn't feel like, okay, he's on the up and up. And a year after Anita was found, he, you know, unalived himself in the same like maintenance room where he took the screen to be fixed, to fix it, but he had never fixed it. And detectives or interviewers found Marty's best friend. He said that they had been best friends for 4 or 5 years, and the night before he unalived himself, he was on the phone with Marty for 6 hours, and it was New Year's Eve, and Marty was having a pretty tough time. He said that he had never heard of Anita or Nicole before the situation, you know, from Marty. Like, he had never told his best friend, like, hey, there's these young girls or anything. So I don't think he was maybe aware of them or had any interest in them. So after Anita's murder, Marty's best friend, which, you know, he's unnamed, he is interviewed on camera and stuff, but I couldn't find his name, but he was saying that they talked for 6 hours that night, and that Marty just kept saying that he had done something. And his friend, you know, is on record saying that he kind of thought that maybe Marty did have something to do with this. And the next day, when they got off the phone, Marty told him that he would, you know, call him back, or I'll talk to you later. And then the next day, his friend gets a call saying, you know, that Marty had unalived himself. And this kind of made his best friend think that, oh crap, you know, maybe he did do this to Anita, and, you know, what the hell, right? And but they also went and interviewed Marty's sister, and she was saying that around the time that Anita was murdered, his girlfriend, his longtime girlfriend, the apartment complex manager, had cheated on Marty. And so Marty was losing his job because she was ultimately his boss. He was losing his house that he had with her. And, you know, this whole situation, because for like that year after she died, he was like one of the #1 suspects. Even though the case went cold for so long, like 15 years, the case went cold, you know, for that next year, I'm sure it wasn't great for Marty, right? Even though he hadn't been, you know, convicted or even tried or anything, I'm sure just in the eye of everybody, your peers and your town, that everybody's thinking that you're a suspect in the murder of a beloved 18-year-old girl. I'm sure it didn't make his life easier, you know, and then his girlfriend cheating on him. So he kind of felt like, you know, he was at the end of his rope maybe, or that things weren't gonna look up, you know. I know depression can be very hard to get over, that initial slump that you can get in. I have depression, and so sometimes it's harder for me to get out of a slump, and I totally understand him feeling like, man, everything is just caving in around me since this case, you know, with Anita happened. And so he did unalive himself in the same building that he took the screen at the apartment complex, which to me is just kind of eerie, right? Like, so the police are like looking still for more suspects. They had Marty's DNA and they had Mike's DNA, but neither one kind of panned out. I don't know what Marty's alibi was, but I know that the cops didn't like think he was like good for it, even though it wasn't put out there to maybe quiet everybody's thoughts about him in the situation. I just think that they kind of dismissed him as being one of the suspects. So they're trying to find another suspect, like who is the one, you know, that committed this horrible murder. And they had some reports, someone, a witness, they said, called and said, gave a tip that that Sunday morning they seen somebody running away from the complex. And the witness got together with the police and came up with one of those sketches of what they say the guy looked like. And they, plastered that all over the Minot news, and they're like, come forward if you've seen this guy or if you know this guy. And the guy actually called in and said that I just go jogging on Sundays. So he was just jogging. So they're like, who else committed this murder? Who could have done it? Or who had a motive, to commit this murder? So they didn't have to look far, because on the day of Anita's murder, the day that they found her body, I should say, they found her on Monday, Tyler was there, and he was standing right outside the police tape, and they reported saying that he wasn't very emotional or distraught even, and they interviewed him right there on the scene in their like police van, and they took his DNA and everything, and they kind of kept him, in their little pocket, like maybe we're gonna come back to him, because they were trying to find an alibi for him. And 2 weeks before Anita's murder, his brother had moved in, and his brother's name was Alex. He didn't think that Tyler, would do anything like that, or he wasn't that type of person. But he just kept inserting himself into the investigation. He would call all the time to see, what was going on, or if they had any new leads. He even paid for the billboards around, Minot, that says like reward for any information. He was even paying for those, and even held a fundraiser for the Minot Police Department to raise funds to help, with their investigating and stuff, because it did go cold for so long. Tyler even put up a Facebook memorial for Anita, and even did like a 20-minute video on YouTube, like in remembrance. And Anita's sister Anna just said that she thought it was really weird that he just kept inserting himself in the police investigation like this, and that he was married, and how could a married man, who was just supposed to be her friend, keep putting himself in the investigation and doing all these videos and fundraisers and spending their money on these billboards and stuff. And she kind of felt kind of weird about it. But, Anna, Anita's sister, was saying that she didn't even think that Tyler and Anita were as friendly as Tyler thought they were. But I guess Tyler would just be going off of the way that Anita would treat him, which was, awesome, because she made him fall in love with her time and time again. So maybe he was just so genuinely sad and heartbroken over the loss of one of his best friends, was the reason that he kept trying to help out and do all these fundraisers and stuff. But the police, said that they just thought Tyler was just being very forward, and they didn't think that he was lying or trying to cover up anything. They did take his DNA also, right there on the scene in the van, because there was DNA on the knife that was found at the foot of the bed. And so I think that they were hopefully trying to make some connections, but it just wasn't matching with anybody. Now, the weekend of Anita's murder, her roommate Nicole went and stayed at her family's house, their farm, which was on the other side of town, and that she hadn't left, is what she told police originally, because they brought her back to their apartment to kind of do a walkthrough, right? Like, hey, let us know if you see anything out of place or anything missing. And it was said that when she went into her bedroom, like when the police opened her bedroom door, like not Anita's bedroom door, but Nicole's bedroom door, when they just like immediately that her iPod was gone. And like backtracking a little bit, Nicole's and Anita's group of friends from high school kind of got together after the murder to maybe reminisce a little bit. And they stated that Nicole was late to this get together, and that when she finally did get there, she was like in a really terrible mood. And she said that she had just come from the police station. She was down there doing an interview, and that she told them, my pink iPod better not be missing. And they said that they just thought, you know, the girl that was Anita's best friend would have been more worried about Anita or who committed the murder, but instead she was worried about her things or the materials that she was worried that would be missing from the apartment. So a lot of them said that it left a bad taste in their mouth, and that they kind of started looking at Nicole like, okay, why are you acting like this instead of, you know, being sad about our friend that's now gone. That did leave a bad taste in their friend's mouth, and some of them started looking at Nicole like, could she have something to do with this? And so the police interviewed Nicole a couple times, and the first time they interviewed her, she said that she was at her family's farm and didn't leave all weekend. That on Saturday night, she stayed in with her mom and her sister, and they watched movies together. But the police don't just leave it at that, you know. They always, not always, but most of the time they're gonna delve deeper and see if she's telling the truth, and if they can get some like corroborating, you know, witnesses or evidence maybe. And so they went and talked to Nicole's family, and they stated that Nicole went to a bar on Saturday night, that she was out at the bar. And when they brought it up to Nicole, Nicole said, yeah, she had went to the bar, and then she went back to her aunt's and uncle's house and watched movies there. So they were like, well, now your story's changing a little bit, so let me go talk to your aunt and uncle. And when they went and talked to her aunt and uncle, her aunt told the police detectives that Nicole said that she went back to Minot to get clothes, and that she, in fact, did see, you know, Anita that night. And when the last interview that I seen with Nicole, she said, oh no, you know, my aunt is just mistaken. I didn't go back to Minot at all that weekend, but I did, in fact, go out to the bar and then went back to my aunt and uncle's. So her story just keeps changing. And so they kind of left it at that. They couldn't get enough evidence of any DNA, because this was back in 2007, you know, when it took place. DNA is not like really old at that time, but today it's a little better, right? They more advanced technology and stuff. And so Cold Case on NBC, I think it is, they came and did an investigation, like tried to, because there was like 4 major suspects, you know, like Marty, Mike, Nicole, and Tyler. And so they came and was like trying to mark off suspects and like help the police get a little bit of a move on, because it just had been laying cold for so long. And they were able to, you know, corroborate Mike's alibi. And they kind of figured out why Marty unalived himself, and did it really have anything to do with maybe guilt, or was he really like encountering all these problems in his life that he just didn't think that he could overcome. And so they did mark off Marty and Mike, and they interviewed Tyler a couple times, and they ended up marking Tyler off, you know, their list also, like, no, we don't think Tyler did it. He just really was in love with Anita, you know, from the time they met until the time that she was murdered, which is really sad, you know, that so many people were so close to her and they all had to lose her, you know, over what really. And so when they were going through like the phones and stuff, like Anita's phone and Nicole's phone, there's messages in there from like Anita and Nicole, and come to find out, Anita was like scared of Nicole. She had told her parents at one point that she wanted to move out and get a different roommate, that they had been arguing all the time. And Anita's mom, Sharon, said that one time when she was over their apartment, her mom's like, "What is that smell? Like, you know, what's going on?" And she was like, "That's Nicole, you know, allegedly this is Nicole's room that smells like this. She's not very tidy." And again, you know, Anita was described as being very tidy even as a young child. And Nicole just wasn't as clean, or, you know, didn't care about the way that she left her things. And it bothered Anita, and they would argue. And one time there was an argument, and that was like on their phone still, where Anita had set an alarm clock for 5 a.m. And again, Anita and Nicole had different schedules. And that was why Nicole started saying that they weren't as close as they used to be, because their schedules were like completely different. Plus Anita's schedule was like packed full with 2 jobs and a full-time, you know, as a full-time student. And so, but when her alarm clock was going off, I guess she didn't wake up fast enough and shut it off for Nicole's liking. And that it woke Nicole up, and Nicole like came banging on Anita's door, and Anita didn't answer the door. Maybe she was still sleeping, but it says that she was scared of Nicole, so maybe she didn't want to answer her bedroom door to Nicole because she was like scared. You know, there's this angry chick banging on my door at 5 a.m. because I didn't turn my alarm clock off quick enough. But in the messages, Nicole was telling Anita, like, next time you better turn it off, or, you know, quicker, or I'm going to turn it off for you. And it's even reported as saying that Nicole told her that you're going to move out of this apartment one way or the other. And the cold case detectives went and found one of Nicole's co-workers from, you know, back in 2007 that she was working with. And this friend or co-worker is recorded saying that Nicole was always angry at Anita, that she couldn't stand Anita, and that one time whenever Nicole would leave, I guess she would leave for the weekend quite often, and that one time when Nicole had left, Anita turned off her fish tank because Nicole told her coworker that Anita didn't like the sound of the fish tank, and she would frequently turn it off, but Nicole would come back in time, you know, to like turn it back on, so nothing happened. But this time Anita, you know, allegedly turned her fish tank off while Nicole was gone for the weekend. And then when she came back from her weekend away, wherever she went, whatever happened, that all her fish were dead, and that she was irate about it, and that Nicole was really, you know, pissed that Anita turned her fish tank off. But during the last interview with Nicole, when she came into the police department and did, you know, like a last interview, she said that her and Anita didn't really have any arguments, that they did have that one disagreement that was found on the phone about the alarm clock going off. But she just said that she was like just overreacting. She wasn't that upset about it. And that Anita wasn't the one that killed her fish, that it was another friend during, you know, a party, that they had poured like alcohol or liquor in the fish tank and killed the fish. But the coworker is like 100% sure that Nicole told her that she would constantly complain about it, or constantly complain about Anita, and Anita just wasn't comfortable with the situation. She wasn't, you know, confrontational. She was like a lover, you know, she loved everybody, and her and Nicole just were clashing, you know, especially there at the end. And Nicole just disagreed with all of that, saying, oh, we weren't that close and we never argued. We just had that one disagreement about the alarm clock, and it wasn't even Anita that killed my fish. So the case went cold for 15 years. And could you imagine just being in that town thinking, like, who could have done this? Who is that cold-hearted, or who was that angry or irate to have, you know, killed an 18-year-old like that? Like, ugh, that is awful. And it stayed cold for 15 years until the cold case detectives came and did their own little investigation, and they finally made an arrest in March of this year, and they arrested Nicole for suspicion of murder. And she pled not guilty and was put on a bond, which Nicole's father posted her bond, and she is out on bail right now. And it keeps getting, you know, pushed farther out. It was pushed out to April, and then August, and then December, and now it's pushed out until March of 2023. So hopefully, you know, both sides can get it together enough to bring her forward on charges, because they believe she's the one who committed the crime. Now, I'm not sure, you know, if I think it's Nicole. I don't know what you guys think, but what could she have been that angry about? You know, the fish or the alarm clock? Because they had been friends for so long, I just couldn't imagine, you know, any of my friends being that mad at me. Of course, we've had disagreements and stuff, but you just wouldn't think, you know, the people closest to you could be capable of something like that. But most of the time it is, you know, people that we let get the closest to us that hurt us, and that's sad. But I hope that Anita's parents do get the justice that they deserve. I hope Anita gets justice, and I hope that Tyler can find another friend, you know, that was as good to him as Anita was, and hopefully somebody is found guilty on the case of Anita Knutson. I hope that I did this story some justice. I hope you guys were able to hang out with me and listen to me ramble about it. I thought it was really interesting, but treacherous nonetheless. Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.